The fire has burned down to a low red bed of coals, and the wind is coming off the ridge in long, slow pushes that bend the black spruce and rattle the frozen branches like old bones. Snow lies close to 3 feet deep across the flat, and it takes the firelight and throws it back blue. I have been out here near enough to 11 weeks now, alone, with the nearest cabin 2 days' walk and a frozen river between. The cold tonight is not raging. It is patient, and it is sitting just past the light, waiting for me to make one wrong move. That is the way of it in the deep of the season, when winter stops shouting and starts listening. I did everything a man is supposed to do. I filled my meat pole. I ran my line hard and clean, and I brought in rabbit after rabbit, lean and quick and easy, until the pole hung heavy with them. I ate my fill 3 times a day, more than a working man ought to need. And still, somewhere in that stretch, my body started to quit on me like a lamp with the oil run dry. I want to tell you something that is going to sound flat backward. This thing that killed more good men out here than anything else was not the cold. It was not the bear that comes off the den mean and starving. It was not the fall through black ice, and it was not the blizzard that walks a man in a circle until he lies down. More men went into the ground over a full belly than ever went over any of that. A quiet thing, a common thing, a thing you would never once suspect. I know how backward that sounds, so stay with me. This thing will not fill you, though your belly says it is full. It will not warm you, though you eat it hot off the coals. It will not hold you through a long night, no matter how much of it you choke down. The one thing it does do is lie to you. It makes you a promise it cannot keep, and it whispers that you are fed while it is quietly starving you to death. Nobody teaches this anymore. Nobody sits a young man down and warns him the way the old hands once did. The knowing has gone plain quiet, gone into the ground with the men who carried it. And there are folks today, folks who sell you a picture of health, who would just as soon you believe the opposite of the truth. There is no profit in what I am about to tell you, and that is exactly why you have never heard it. The fix for this costs nothing, not 1 red cent. It is the very part of the animal that near everybody today scrapes off into the dirt, or throws to the dogs, or peels away with a look of disgust on their face. Men walk right past the thing that would save them to get to the thing that kills them slow. It is thrown out by the ton, every day, all across this country. But I am not going to name it yet. Keep listening, because once you see this, you will never look at a full meat pole the same way again. You will never look at a lean roast the same way. You will look at it the way I do now, with a kind of respect and a kind of fear. I am not a man who read this in some book by a warm stove. I ran a trap line for the better part of my life, up where the country does not forgive a soft man. I have wintered alone more times than I can rightly count, with nothing but a stove, an axe, and what I could catch. I have had the meat pole full and the belly full, and still felt the strength run out of my arms like water out of a cracked jug. I have had nights I caught nothing, and nights I caught plenty and was no better for it. This kind of knowing does not stick from hearing it once. It sticks by needing it badly enough that it burns itself into you. And a man only learns it for good the winter it nearly takes him. The men who taught me did not learn it from any page. They learned it from the ones who did not come back. Old trappers, old hands who had run these lines when the maps were still mostly white. They spoke of it low, the way a man speaks of a friend he watched go down. They had buried those friends with their own hands, in ground so froze they had to thaw it with fire first. And every one of them told me the same thing, that the fullest belly can hide the emptiest man. Here is what most folks have flat backward. They think that if a man has meat, he cannot starve. They think that starvation is an empty pack and a bare pole and a growling gut. They picture a full meat pole as safety itself, all that flesh hanging frozen and red in the cold, enough to last a man weeks. They picture the lean cuts, the clean red muscle, the part we are all taught is the good part, the healthy part, the part a man ought to want. They see that pole full, and they feel safe as a babe in a cradle. And that feeling is the trap closing. Now hold on to this next part, because it is the whole spine of the story. A man can eat himself sick and starve to death at the very same time. A man with a full belly, eating 3 good meals of meat a day, can waste away and die with meat still hanging on the pole above his head. I have seen the accounts of it, and I have felt the edge of it in my own body. I am going to show you exactly how that happens, but not yet. Keep it in the back of your mind, that picture. A full pole and a dead man beneath it. This danger is not one thing acting alone. It is 2 forces meeting, the way a flood needs both the rain and the frozen ground that cannot drink it in. The first force is the season. Late winter is what the old hands called the killing time, and they did not name it that for the cold. By late winter, every creature in the country has burned itself down. The deer that was fat and sleek come autumn is now gaunt, its fat all spent through the long dark. The rabbit is quick and lean, and there is nothing to it but muscle stretched over bone. The whole country goes lean together, all at once, every animal in it. And a lean animal, my friend, is the second force, and the 2 of them together make a snare no strong man can pull free of by strength alone. That is the shape of the thing. 2 lean forces meeting in the dark. Now let me show you how the trap actually closes on a man. Here is the cruel logic of it, and it is cruel as anything the country ever built. The easiest meat to get in the killing time is the leanest meat. The rabbit is everywhere. He is easy to snare, easy to catch, quick to clean, and he asks almost nothing of you. So the hungry man, the tired man, the man whose strength is going, he does the natural thing. He eats what is easy. He eats what is abundant. He fills his belly with that clean, lean flesh because it is there, and because it feels like the very act of surviving. Every bite feels like a victory. Every meal feels like he is winning. And every single time he does it, he digs the hole a little deeper. That is the horror of it. The thing that feels most like survival is the thing that is killing him. He is not being foolish. He is not being lazy. He is doing exactly what a sensible man ought to do, eating the food in front of him, and the food itself is turning on him. The more he eats to save himself, the faster he goes down. A man could work that trap his whole life and never once feel the teeth until they had already closed. Now here is where most folks go wrong, so lean in close, because if this next piece does not land, nothing else I tell you will keep you alive. Meat is meat. Food is food. A full belly is a fed man. Those 3 things sound like plain common sense, and every one of them is dead wrong in the killing time. Lean meat by itself is half a thing. It is a key with no teeth cut into it, slid into the lock and turning on nothing. It is a fire with plenty of wood and no draft, all fuel and no air, smoking and choking and never once throwing heat. A man can pile that lean flesh into himself from dawn to dark and stay just as cold and just as weak. Because the thing is incomplete, and an incomplete food is a slow poison dressed up as a meal. The people who lived on this land for 1,000 winters running almost never died this way. They knew the country the way you know your own hands in the dark. When they took an animal in the lean time, the first thing they went for was not the muscle at all. They went for the fat behind the eyes, the marrow in the bone, the grease around the gut, the brain, the tongue, the organs. They fed the lean red meat to the dogs, or left it, and they kept the parts we throw away. They did the opposite of us, and they did it without thinking, because it was handed down to them in the blood and in the telling. It was the newcomers who died. The trappers and the seekers and the wandering men who came into this country from soft places, they saw those first people eating brain and grease and gut, and they thought it was ignorance. They copied the doing, but they skipped the knowing. They took the muscle, the good red meat, the part that looked like proper food to a civilized eye, and they threw the rest to the birds, and the country buried them for it, one after another, with full poles and lean bellies, certain to the last that they were eating like sensible men. I am going to hand you the fix the same way it was handed to me, in layers, one at a time, because if I dumped it all on you at once, it would run through you like water, and you would keep none of it. It came to me slow, over hard winters, and it earned its weight by coming slow. So I will give it to you the same, and I will ask you to sit with each piece before I give you the next. That is how a thing like this takes root in a man. The first layer will turn your head clean around. The thing you are chasing is not the thing that saves you. That red muscle, that lean, clean meat you are taught to prize, that is not the prize at all out here. The fat is the fuel, and the lean is the lie. Say that over to yourself. The fat is the fuel, and the lean is the lie. Everything a man needs to hold his heat and hold his strength through a long winter night lives in the fat and the marrow and the organs, and almost nothing he needs lives in that pretty red meat alone. We have been taught to want the wrong part our whole lives. The second layer is the one nearly every soul alive today gets exactly backward, and it carries a small sting of shame with it, because it is the part folks have been taught to find low or crude or unclean. The organs, the liver, the kidney, the heart, the brain, the marrow scooped hot from the split bone. The very parts a modern man wrinkles his nose at and slides off his plate. Those are the parts packed tight with everything the lean meat is missing. And here is the bitter joke of it. That disgust, that turned up nose, that feeling that these parts are somehow beneath us, that is the exact reason the treasure is still lying there for the taking. Because everyone throws it away, it costs nothing. Because everyone is ashamed of it, no one competes for it. The old hands were not too proud to eat the parts that keep a man alive. They knew that pride is a luxury of the fed, and the country strips a man of luxuries fast. The disgust you feel is not wisdom. It is the very thing that would kill you, dressed up as good manners. Now the third layer, and this is the one for the hands. This is the doing of it, the part you could carry out tomorrow with nothing but what you already own. When you take an animal in the lean time, you do not start with the muscle. You take the bones, the long bones and the joints, and you crack them open with the back of your axe or between two stones. Inside is the marrow, and you dig it out with a knife or a green stick, and it is soft and rich and worth more than any steak on that carcass. Then you take those cracked bones and you put them in a pot with snow melted down to water, and you set it at the edge of the coals and you let it go slow. Not a hard boil, a long, low, patient simmer for hours, while the fat and the goodness cook out of the bone and into the water. You skim nothing away, you want all of it. And after a time you will see it, a film of bright gold rising and pooling and spreading across the top of that dark broth, catching the firelight, thick and warm and alive. That gold is life itself. That is the thing that holds your heat through the night. You drink it hot, grease and all, and you feel it go down and stay down, like a coal set gently in your chest. You take the liver and you do not cook it to leather. You warm it through, no more, because the long heat robs it. You eat the heart, which is muscle, yes, but muscle wrapped in fat and rich with what the lean cuts lack. You eat the kidneys, the brain, the fat that lines the gut, the fat behind the eye. You render every scrap of fat you can find, melting it slow in a pan until it runs clear, and you save that grease in anything that will hold it, and you add it back to every lean meal you eat. You do not let one drop of it hit the dirt. And know this, when you crack that bone and dig out that marrow, you are not doing some clever new trick. You are doing the oldest thing our kind has ever done. Our own ancient kin were cracking bones for the marrow, further back than you can rightly picture. Long before anyone thought to write a single word down. Long before the first field was ever plowed. There are old, old sites where you find nothing but bones split lengthwise for the grease inside, laid down by hands so long gone we have no name for them. This is not new knowledge. It is the first knowledge. It is the thing that carried us through every winter that ever was, and we threw it away in a single lifetime. Now the fourth layer, and this is the one nobody sees coming. The one that sounds like madness until the moment it clicks. When the fat runs out, when all you have left is that clean, lean meat, the answer is not to eat more of it. The answer is to eat less. Eat less of it. I know every part of you fights that. Every instinct in a hungry man screams to eat more when he feels the strength leaving, to fill the belly higher, to shovel it in against the cold. But lean meat with no fat to burn alongside it will kill you faster the more of it you eat, because the eating itself is the poison. So when there is nothing but lean, you eat little, and you spend the rest of your strength hunting fat, because a small amount of lean does you less harm than a belly full of it. Now circle back to what I told you to hold on to, that full pole and that dead man beneath it. Here is how it happens inside a body. When a man eats only lean meat, meat with no fat and no grease alongside it, his body can only handle so much of that pure flesh at one time. There is a ceiling it cannot pass, a limit to how much of that lean it can turn into anything useful. And when he eats past that ceiling, and a starving man always does, the leftover cannot be used, and it cannot be stored. It turns to a kind of waste inside him. And that waste backs up where it was never meant to go, into the blood, into the water of the body, until the whole works turns foul and sour. His body, meanwhile, is still starving for fuel it is not getting, because the fuel was always in the fat, and the fat is gone. So the body does the only thing it can. It grows desperate, and it turns on itself. It starts to burn its own reserves, and when those are gone, it starts to burn its own flesh, eating its own muscle from the inside, just to keep the man standing and walking and warm enough to draw the next breath. He is eating all day, and his body is eating itself all night. He gets a headache that will not quit, a deep, sick weariness, a loose and watery gut, and a hunger that only grows the more he feeds it. A full man can starve to death with meat still on the pole above his head. That clawing, bottomless, frantic feeling the old accounts all describe, that endless hunger that no amount of lean meat will quiet, that is not greed. It is not weakness. It is not a soft man with no discipline. It is the body screaming one word over and over, louder and louder, until the man can think of nothing else. The word is fat. The body knows exactly what it is dying for, and it is begging for the one thing that empty red meat can never give it. And here is the cruelest turn of the whole business. The season a man needs that fat the most is the exact season it is nowhere to be found. In the fat months of autumn, when every animal is sleek and greasy and rich, a man hardly needs the extra, because he is warm and the living is easy. But come the deep of winter, when the cold is trying its hardest to kill him, every animal in the country has burned its fat away to nothing, and there is none left to take. You need it most when it is scarcest. You are surrounded by lean meat and dying for want of grease. That is not bad luck. That is the country putting you to the test. the way it tests every living thing that tries to cross the killing time. Now let me tell you why nobody ever told you this. And it is nothing dark, nothing hidden, nothing you could call a plot against you. It is quieter than that, and sadder. A piece of survival knowing only stays alive as long as folks actually need it to live. As long as a man had to take an animal and use the whole of it to see his family through to spring, this knowing was as common as bread. Every child knew the fat was the prize. And then the road reached the valley. The store opened its doors. The day came when a man could buy his fat and his grease and his oil off a shelf without ever cracking a bone. And on that day, the knowing began to die. It did not die because anyone killed it. It died because it stopped being needed. And a thing that stops being needed slips out of the telling within a generation or two. The grandfather knew it in his bones. The father half remembered it. The son never heard it at all. That is how a truth that kept our kind alive for 100,000 winters can vanish inside of 3 or 4 without a single soul meaning any harm. It simply was not passed along, because nobody had to pass it along anymore. And so it went into the ground. But it got worse than merely forgotten. The modern trade came along and took that old truth and turned it clean upside down. They took the fat, the very fuel of life, the thing the old hands prized above all, and they taught you to fear it. They stamped a word on the lean meat like a badge of honor, and that word is lean. And they sold it back to you as the healthy choice, the smart choice, the choice a careful man makes. They took the part that kills you in the killing time and dressed it up as virtue. And they took the part that saves you and taught you to scrape it into the bin. There is no money in telling a man to eat the fat and the marrow and the organs he can get for free from any animal. There is a great deal of money in selling him the trimmed lean cut and telling him he is wise for buying it. That is all it is. Not a lie told on purpose, not a scheme, just the quiet arithmetic of what sells and what does not. The truth was free, so nobody had reason to shout it. The opposite turned a profit, so it got shouted from every rooftop until it drowned the old knowing out entire. Let me be straight with you now, the way I would want a man to be straight with me, because I would rather you trust me than be impressed by me. This is not going to happen to most of you. If you live near a store, if you eat a mixed plate, if you get your fat and your grease from a dozen easy sources without ever thinking about it, this will never once come for you. You would have to be somewhere far and lean and alone, living off nothing but what you catch, for a long stretch of hard cold before this ever showed its face. But do not walk away thinking it is only an old story for old men, because the exact conditions I named are the conditions of every real reckoning a man ever faces out here. The lost hunter, the man whose plans went sideways, the one who counted on the country being kinder than it is. And here's the part that ought to make you sit up straight. Every single man this thing ever killed thought the very same thing you are thinking right now. He thought it could not come for him. He was fed. He had meat. He was doing everything right. He thought that right up until the morning he could not rise. And by then, the country already had him. I do not ask you to take this on my word alone. There is a record of it, plain and hard. In the years of the Second World War, the United States Army put out a small survival booklet for men who might go down in the far north. And in that booklet, in plain words, is the warning that a man cannot live on lean meat alone, that he must have fat or he will sicken and die no matter how much he eats. It was known well enough by then to print and hand to soldiers. And there was a man named Vilhjalmur Stefansson, an explorer who lived years among the northern people and ate as they ate. And he set it all down from his own body and his own eyes. He told of it plain, How the newcomers who ate only the lean rabbit and the lean caribou fell sick within a week. Weak and wretched and wasting. A sickness the old northern hands knew so well they had a name for it long before any soldier wrote it in a booklet. And he told of the cure, which was no cure at all, but simply the eating of fat, the grease and the marrow and the organs, and how a sick and failing man would come right again within a day or two of getting it into him. The lean nearly killed them, and the fat brought them back. That is no legend. That happened to real men with real names, watched by other men who lived to write it down. So carry these few things out of here in your head, and let the rest go if you must, but keep these. When you take an animal in the cold, go for the fat and the marrow and the organs first, and treat the lean as the leftover. Crack every long bone and simmer it slow, and drink the gold grease that rises, and never pour it out. Save every scrap of rendered fat and add it back to every lean meal you eat. When the fat is gone and only lean remains, eat little and hunt hard for grease instead of filling your belly with muscle. And never, ever let a full belly convince you that you are a fed man, because the belly is the easiest liar the country ever made. Here is the real lesson. Bigger than fat and marrow and lean meat, bigger than any trap line. Those men did not die because the country was cruel. The country was only ever just the country, doing what it has always done. No malice in it, no mercy in it. Only the plain, hard truth of cold and hunger and time. They died because they were certain. Certain they were fed. Certain they were doing right. Certain that a full pole meant a full man. The wilderness never kills the humble man half as fast as it kills the sure one, because the humble man keeps looking for what he does not know, and the sure man has already stopped looking. The whole of it fits in your closed hand. Fat is the fuel, and lean is the lie, and the fullest belly can hide the emptiest man. That is it. That is the thing that took so many good men, and it is free as the snow on the ground, free as the marrow in the bone you were about to throw away. This knowing nearly went into the ground with the old hands who carried it, and I have watched too much of the old knowing go quiet already. I will not stand by and watch this one go with it. Not while I have breath and a fire and someone willing to sit and listen. So let me ask you something, and I mean it true. Did your grandmother or your grandfather ever save the grease? Keep a can of it by the stove? Crack the bones for the soup? Eat the parts we are told to throw out now? Tell me what they knew that got left behind, because somebody in your blood likely knew this once. And come back next time, because I am going to tell you something that sounds just as backward as this did. There is a kind of water in this country, so clear and cold and clean that it will make you sicker than any mud puddle ever could. And the clearest water is the one you ought to trust the least. Take care of your fire tonight, and do not ever trust a full belly to tell you the truth.